something that's been discovered. Trying to figure out why people are like so loyal to certain brands of companies. And it really benefits them nothing at all. Mostly because I discovered through research of other people's uses that sometimes things don't have to cost an arm and a leg to give you the exact same quality as something that necessarily doesn't cost that much. I don't mean cheap. It may in fact be old or something not new. It may in fact just be new, overstocked stuff that it's kept because we in this world overproduce everything in this day and age. And even 10, 15, 20 years ago. And a lot of that stuff is still new in the box and sitting there and somewhere waiting to be sold in some warehouse all far off, and we tend to forget this stuff. And in this age of thinking that everything that we have to have has to be the newest and greatest thing, you tend to miss out on a lot of things because you waste a lot of resources on these newest and greatest things for no absolute reason at all. So, that being said, I'd say, for instance, a Nikkor lens between the focal range of 70 to 200 often ranges. As I bought one with VR that cost me $2,200 new, right? And it's one lens that you kind of have to use, and then you need your 28 or 20 whatever through 70 whatever, an aperture range of like 2.8 you'd hope or better, and those tend to run you close to around 9 to that same $2,200, depending on whether or not you have VR in the lens or not. Solely for image stabilization, which in today's market is kind of stupid because most bodies come with image stabilization in them. I'm not saying it doesn't help at all, but it's something that most people who aren't earning money from their photography don't need at all. Things you like to have but necessarily don't need, because you of course aren't producing a dollar from this, and it's a simple hobby, and it would make no sense to waste money on a lens that has the exact same technology that the body has in it, and then you find you aren't even taking low light shots or in events or outside at night without a tripod or anything like that, which is the main function of that, is for that, or in video when you're walking around in image stabilization, mostly on the ones that use it on the sensor, keep it floating so that you don't have a shaky picture, right? Okay, makes sense. So you have to think about a lot of these things that you're buying and dying to get, but don't necessarily know what they do and don't serve a functioning purpose in your life, so why have them or pay for them? But most of us don't know what they are and just go with whatever little reviewer, whatever person said on Amazon or something, and never got the opportunity to check the lens out yourself. Should be the main thing to do is to go rent one and find that you may not need to, for instance, in Canon, you're probably better off using Tamron lenses than the Canon lenses, the same as in Nikon. For instance, both of those lenses at 7200 do not really give you the focal range true to 7200. This isn't anything that can be disputed, it's factual. But Tamron's lens in that range does. On last year's lenses, the ones that just came out, I have no clue. But on the last series of lenses, yeah, that's just what happened. And basically, but the average person wouldn't notice this because you don't have a computer to be able to measure your focal length differences to be able to know anything. So what happens is we get accustomed to these defects that they have sold us, and solely because of brand loyalty, you stay with that company and manufacturer because you become loyal to the brand, not because you've invested $20,000 or $30,000 in lenses or anything else, because that's what you're really investing in. It's not the body of the camera at all. You don't really have to care about the body of the camera really much at all. Like, that's not the most important thing. The most important thing is the lens that you're shooting with, as you will soon learn, because you can have a $5,000 anything, a $3,000 anything, and throw your glass that you can then afford on it, or have kept the ket lens that came with that camera, and done yourself a great injustice because you never got any good glass on that lens to see anything beneficial. And you wonder why your pictures are fuzzy, or just you have issues of certain light refraction or chromatic abrasion for no reason, or you set up your software incorrectly and you don't know how to make adjustments to tell the film you're working on, essentially it's a digital negative, and if it's shot in RAW or you're shooting in JPEG, which means you totally just shot in JPEG for no reason. And I won't say for no reason, there are reasons for it, but it's mostly space saving, and aside from that there's no reason to shoot in JPEG, like none. And basically you lose all the ability to adjust anything inside your file as a true negative because the JPEG has been compressed. So you learn to adjust these things right later on and fix a lot of the problems that you've had in your pictures. Are simple mistakes because we are ineffectual with certain pieces of the tools because it's kind of complex, because you have 10 different steps in producing a picture that you don't realize has taken you 10 steps, because of the fact the majority of the time it's done for you. If you use an automatic mode on your camera, a lot of the settings have been set up and done for you, so you don't realize why it's too dark or too light or out of focus or whatever until it's too late, because of the fact that you weren't the one who set up the settings in the camera in the first place and it thought for you. So doing that just makes it a lot harder. And being stuck in a system kind of goes with that, because then you're stuck in either Lightroom or Photoshop, or if you don't learn to use those tools, then you're kind of stuck being in that brand in the first place because of the fact that you learned that system and not how to actually achieve the function that you were trying to do without becoming handicapped in automatic functions. If you learn to do them yourself, you've taught yourself something and can do that in any one of those tools. You won't have to have Lightroom, you won't have to have Photoshop, you won't have to have Color One, you won't have to have a Sony, you won't have to have a Canon or a Nikon or whatever. You'll learn to be able to adapt between any of them because of the fact that you learned the skills to use the tools and didn't rely on the automatic settings or any of those crutches that basically hurt you in the long run, because of the fact that you then never learned to do any of these things, which is why people truly become brand loyal and stuck with them. It's not because it's a better lens or a better camera or a better tool. It's because there's something inside that tool that you like and want to use. I like Sony because of their digital mirrors at first, and being able to see my live view immediately from the camera. Okay, so I make my adjustments, it's live there in the screen, and most of the SLRs that have a mirror, you can't do that because the mirror is in the way at the time of you viewing. Okay, that's the only reason I choose them over anyone else, and aside from them was Olympus, but Olympus just went out of business, as we all know, and that was kind of why I won't say I didn't know or anything, it was just like they were smaller. Of the mirrorless companies, Sony's the biggest, so like it was easy. And then they have a long-standing line of lenses because they kept a mount from Minolta, so it kind of made more sense to go with them. Is Minolta lenses are super cheap and all A-mount lenses are super cheap. Like I can get a 70 to 200 for $300, brand new. Meanwhile, an L-series lens or a Nikon lens is $2,000 for the exact same quality lens that is long since proven. Like, it makes no sense to be loyal to a brand if it's not going to benefit you in some way that in your workflow, long-standing. Like, so you aren't changing because 4/3 now has some new lens on it and you think that 4/3 is the new biggest thing, and you find out 10 years later that, hey, it dies off because like there's only so much you can get out of a sensor that's that size, and it has its benefits and then it has its downsides. Everything does. So unless that tool fits you wholly and completely, then you should invest your money into it. Otherwise, you should not, and should not be loyal to any one of these brands, because their job is solely to get your money. It's not to maintain your loyalty or to fix your products. As we all know, it's up to you. Basically, I don't care if you're an artisan or not, as we've seen complaints and reviews from everyone like that basically has had an issue from one of the major companies, and normally it's not fixed by the company or nicely. It's because people get upset and get on here and complain, and then there's some outcry, and then they want to fix whatever because it's going to cost them money. So, if they can't be loyal to you, then why are you loyal to them? So with that, I hope that all of you have a very good day, and shoot and have fun.